stories. And so I figured I could do some reading of a couple of the short stories that are in here with some book sounds and stuff like that. So yes, this is just going to be a really chill, cozy video. I have a candle going, you can't see it, but it's a woodwick, so there's going to be some crackling, and yeah. So, go ahead and sit back, back. Relax, and I hope that you all enjoy. So this is actually my sister's book, but I'm borrowing it for this video. And I did my makeup all spooky, like, kind of like Dracula, like a vampire kind of look. So yeah. Murder, mayhem, short stories. I'm hoping this video won't be too long because I have a Zoom to join at 4 o'clock and it's currently 2:18. Yes, I have a Zoom and I have this makeup on, so yeah. The first short story I'll read, I think I'm going to read about 4 of them, depending on how long it will be. Maybe I'll only read 3, I don't know. But the first story I want to read, I haven't read any of these either, so is The Wendigo Goes Home. So, Cleve Packer prided himself on eating only people who were about to die. Over the 150 years of cannibalism, he'd evolved not only his senses but his morality. While travelling through northern Ohio, he smelled death on a large young woman with blonde hair and expensive shoes. The scent was subtle. She wasn't the only one dying, but someone close to her. Cleve approached and made conversation at the local coffee shop. She was happy to oblige, Cleve looking so tall and handsome in his brown suit. I forgot to mention this short story is also by Sarah Dobie Banner. Okay, anyway. Her name was Bree Shepherd, the manager of a high-end clothing store in Cleveland. Single but looking. She liked to talk about herself and her family. Her mother was going through some sort of aging crisis, embracing hot yoga and spin at her local gym. Bree said she even suspected her mother of shopping in the junior section at JCPenney, all in an effort to stay young forever. Her dad was a retired lawyer who now spent most of his time reading murder mysteries and pretending that he would one day write a novel. There was the elder sister, Bianca, who was married with 3 children. Bree had talked most about her little brother, poor Blake, the hopeless homosexual, perpetually single despite his good looks and pleasant, albeit quiet demeanour. She said he studied science at the nearby university. Cleve was careful to say very little about himself, other than that he was new in town. He was always new in town. After a refill, Bree invited him for a late summer bonfire at her parents' house, where there would be extended family and friends. And oh, wouldn't it be nice for you new city. When they partied, she waved and carried the smell of death down a sidewalk lined with leafy trees at full tilt August green. In her absence, the air smelled of coffee grounds and oil from nearby leaking cars. The sick person could be anyone really, but Cleaver suspected he would meet that person if he stuck close to cheerful Bree Shepherd. Perhaps at the bonfire filled, she said, with so many family and friends. It had been weeks since his last feast, and that nothing satisfactory. Just an old woman in a lonely house that smelled of dishwasher, soap and band-aids. He preferred younger meat. In the early 1900s, there were all sorts of diseases that sprung up and took people by the dozens. Such a holiday back then. But such feasts were rare nowadays. With advances in medicine and preventative treatment, still there was hope for the bonfire, hope for a good hot meal. The Shepherd house was less house, more estate. 2 stories with a wrap-around white front porch, navy blue siding, and the modernized tin roof that reflected the blue sky at sunset. Bree introduced Cleve around to the dozens of guests, all shapes and ages. The house smelled of roasting meat, but still, beneath the body odor and the fruit-forward wine, there wafted the scent of death. Cleve wandered corner to corner with his glass of wine, sniffing in that chair an echo of decay. Just by the window, a shadow of illness. On the back door, a wrecking handprint. He recognized the scent. Cancer. Cleve placed his own enormous hand on the back door and took a deep breath. Ah, illness, the delicious smell of a foreshadowed feast. Smells good, doesn't it? Bree touched his shoulder. Dad's roasting a pig out back. I'll show you. Now that he'd caught the scent, Cleve refused to let go. He followed the girl outside and nodded with disinterest at the dead-eyed pig on the spit. Bits of marinade dripped from its flesh and hissed in the fire below. A group of people crowded around a large fire pit in the midst of towering oaks, leaves turning black by falling night. Cleve stepped to the edge of the fire where the younger people stood gathered. They laughed with their bottles of beer. Women in light summer dresses and men in t-shirts. The scent was stronger there. Cleve's mouth watered. He saw the young man in a sweater. Despite the summer heat, the raging fire, he looked cold. His thin shoulders hunched forward as he took a gulp of beer and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. He smiled when addressed. He smiled and pretended, but he knew the young man in the sweater knew he was dying, but it was clear no one else did. No one looked at him with pity. People didn't make a point to talk to the dying man, nor did they avoid him. His illness was his scent, was his secret, his and Cleve's. The young man in the sweater looked up when he felt Cleve looking. He blinked twice, huge light eyes with a dot of reflected fire in the center. The man bit his bottom lip and smiled at Cleve, but stopped abruptly and headed back for a black farmhouse in the back corner of the yard. Cleve followed. He wandered through the sticky, humid air that smelled of barbecue and past dancing yellow fireflies. The world beyond the farmhouse smelled green, like fairy tale forests and fresh rain and cigarettes. The man in the sweater sat on a swinging bench attached to a strong tree branch and smoked. Cleve made an ostentatious entrance. So there is the smoking area. He joined the stranger on the bench and pulled out a pack of cigarettes. For a moment they smoked in silence, Cleve enraptured by the cancerous bouquet. It was in the young man's brain. Cleve smelled it like a spot of perfume on a woman's throat. I'm Cleve. Cleve. He reached out his hand. The stranger took it. Blake, your breeze, brother. He nodded and exhaled through his nose. Blake Shepherd was the kind of meal Cleve kept on living for. Hunger and lust had long since intertwined, and Blake fulfilled both needs. He would be dying soon, and he had the delicate features of a fairy sprite. He looked nothing like his full-figured sister with her bleached blonde hair. He was slim, small, with black hair that fell just over the tops of his ears down the back of his neck. Cleve leaned a little closer. Can I tell you something and you won't get offended? Blake looked at him sideways and tried to hide a grin. Sure. I think you're absolutely gorgeous. Blake smiled and chewed his lower lip. I saw you across the fire and thought, I get it. This is why poets write poetry, why painters paint. Blake chuckled and shook his head. Too much. They remained in the solitary calm of summer, the party voices far away. A few crickets sang nearby and fireflies throttled in the purple hue of deepening night. Blake put his cigarette in an empty jar. Blake put his cigarette in an empty jam jar, half filled with the discarded butts. He held it out for Cleve, who did the same. Cleve put his hand on Blake's warm thigh. He tensed around the attentions. Would you come into the woods with me? Blake shook his head. I shouldn't. Is it because you're dying? Blake froze. What? The tumor in your brain. They've told you it's inoperable. How long do you have before the symptoms start to show? Blake stood up. How the hell do you know that? I can smell it on you. I smelled it on your sister. You can smell cancer. Cleve stood too. I smell death. He put his nose against Blake's throat and inhaled. It smells delicious. The young man moved to step around Cleve, but Cleve rubbed his arms around Blake from behind and clasped his palm across Blake's mouth. To Cleve, the full-grown man felt like a small, breakable thing in his arms. Blake's warm breath came out in puffs, which Cleve caught in his hand. You beautiful creature, he whispered into Blake's hair. Blake trembled, and Cleve felt himself growing taller, his hands larger. Shh, let's sit just for a moment, and I'll tell you a story. Something wet trickled on top of Cleve's hand, which was when he realized the trembling had turned to tears. There's no need for that, dearest. He gave Blake's body a little squeeze, but Blake groaned like he'd been hurt. Cleve lost track of his strength before fading. He carried the sick man backwards under the cover of woods. Leaves scraped at the back of his head, roots reaching up to trip his ankles. Cleve took careful steps until they had some distance from the others. He let Blake go. Blake didn't run or scream. He turned to face Cleve, hands balled into fists, but his wrath quickly turned to stuttering breaths. Blake backed away until his feet caught on a root. He almost tumbled backwards into the underbush, but Cleve caught him with 2 fingers and leaned him against a thick, mossy tree trunk. I just want to tell you a story, Cleve said, but his voice had already changed, turned deeper. He looked down at Blake, Cleve having grown inches in seconds. His fingers weren't claws yet, but with Blake near, it was only a matter of time. The dying man didn't move. Would you like one of your cigarettes? Blake shook his head. No. Cleve began to walk in a little circle. The fabric of his suit was torn under his armpits. His slacks felt much too tight. My name, he said, is Cleve Packer. I was born in 1846. What? Cleve held up his finger, which was now a claw. Blake's breath faltered at the sight. He tried to back farther into the tree, knocking pieces of bark to the forest floor with his feet. "You're gorgeous, you know that. I could just eat you up." Cleve smiled, put his hand around the side of Blake's neck, and brushed his black hair with pointed nails. "I was on a hunt for gold in 1874 when it happened. 6 of us got caught in the Colorado Mountains avalanche. And well, old Frank, he died. What were we supposed to do? We ate him." Blake closed his eyes tight. More tears fell. "Our guide, this damn Ojibwe, I don't know how to pronounce that, he took off, said we were cursed. We were, but what a lovely curse." Cleve smiled when he felt his veins push through his gums. One of his claws caressed Blake's cheekbone. "I ended up killing the rest of the team, but I found the more I ate, the stronger I got. Now look at me. I'll be 200 in a blink." "Please," Blake muttered. Cleve pulled his foreheads together and took a big whiff. He moaned at the nearness of blood and meat and fear. He was practically fond of fear. I do people like you a favour. Do you want to watch your family suffer? That's why you haven't told them, isn't it? You don't want to hurt them. You don't want to waste away in a hotel bed for months on end and make them watch, do you?" "No." "So let me." Cleve had to practically crouch to be at Blake's height by then. He couldn't stop growing with the tease of a feast so close. "You sweet treat. Let me swallow your last breath." Blake's light eyes darted back towards the direction of the fire, the house, the people he loved. "What will my family think? How about this? Look at me, Blake." Cleve suspected that what he looked like by then, all yellow veins, red eyes. His suspicions were confirmed when Blake's lip parted and he coughed out a sob. "It'll look like an animal attack." Blake closed his eyes. Cleve whispered, "It won't hurt at all," and pressed a single kiss at the supple flesh that hid a terminal tumor. Cleve whistled and picked his teeth as he drove towards his next destination, Pennsylvania. He always enjoyed that state, with its rolling hills and smoke of the steel industry. He slowed his car as he drove by a hospice, just to get a throatful of perfume and sighed at the happy memories of the night before. Blake Shepherd, though thin, had been a lovely rapist, young, healthy, except for that one thing, and flesh. Cleve could be full, at least for a little while, but the hunger always came back, which was why he moved on. Who should be next? It would have to be someone special to surpass that young man in the woods. He pulled up at a diner for a cup of coffee. Halfway up the sidewalk, his head started hurting. Inside, he crinkled his brow and took a seat at the counter, where a friendly, disease-free waitress smiled at the handsome man in a suit. "Coffee, please," he said. When she brought it back, she grabbed the napkins. "Oh, honey, your nose is bleeding." Cleve reached a hand up to his face when he pulled his finger away. His palm was covered in blood. He took the napkins gratefully. "1 second," he said, and headed for the restroom. He looked in the mirror. Everything seemed alright. He looked the same, medium-length brown cough, not a hair out of place, brown eyes, and a freshly shaved chin. Maybe his cheeks were a little sunken, but maybe that was just the light. His head pounded now. He closed his eyes. Something squeezed in his chest. He opened his mouth, but breath came out in a quaky wheeze. His heart pounded, then stopped, which made him choke, then started again. He punched himself in the chest. Cameron's nose rushed down the back of his throat. He lay there and coughed and remembered them all. So many. The sick and the dying. He had eaten them, diseases and all. Apparently one too many. Cleve rolled on the dirty floor and laughed, because maybe that Indian had been right. He really was cursed, but only by his own mortality. He thought he might have been better off as an outright monster, but Cleve Packer would never know. So that's the first story. And yeah, I think we'll do one more because it's getting really close to when I have to go to my meeting. So this is called Drive Safe by K.A. Milk. Okay. The woman sits on the side of the road, naked and shivering with her knees pulled up to her chin. Beside me, Cameron looks up from her cell phone, her freckled face glowing in the light of the screen. Oh my god, Kyle, stop the car. We speed past her. What are you doing? Cameron says, twisting around in her seat to look out the rear windshield. I shrug. What if it's some elaborate ploy by a serial killer? Set a pretty lady up on the side of the road, wait for some chivalrous opportunist to come save her, and wham! Best case scenario where the next mysterious naked people hoping to be rescued on the side of the road. You can't be serious. I shrug again as guilt settles in my stomach. She could be a victim of him, or she could be working with him. Or there could be no serial killer, and she could just be a woman in need. Cameron said, her gaze hard and kinda terrifying. I sigh and make a U-turn. When we see her again, still curled up in a ball, I pull over. Gravel scatters beneath my tires. The woman doesn't seem to notice us. Cameron practically flies out of the car. I unbuckle and step out. It's freezing, the wind cutting through my jacket and burning my cheeks. I slip in the slush on my way to her, snowflakes catching in my hair and shooting into her eyes. Are you okay? I shout above the wind. The woman doesn't hear me, and maybe she's too frozen to respond. Maybe she's dead. Cameron stands beside her and shouts something at me, but the wind steals her words. Cameron holds out her hand, urging. I guess at what she wants, taking off my coat and swapping it around the hitchhiker's shoulders. The woman doesn't even look at me. We're going to help you, Cameron says. It's going to be okay. Let's get her in the car. My bare arms stinging in the cold, I crouch behind the woman and help lift her to her feet. She steps with us, slowly shaking and shaking and shaking. I duck my head and pay attention to my feet, trying not to think about how slow our pace is or how long it'll take to reach the car when every footstep is a painful, freezing eternity. And then we've reached the car. We lay the woman in the back seat, and I run back to the driver's side and slam the door. My teeth chatter behind enough to chip, especially in the cold. I crank the heat and rub my hands together over the heaters. Cameron's breathing heavy, and for a moment we all sit in the quiet, me, my girlfriend, and the dying hitchhiker girl in the back. Finally, Cameron says, we should go. I look over my shoulder, hoping she isn't dead, praying we got her in time, and wishing we'd never stopped in the first place. Her shivering seems less violent, her skin less blue. The woman looks at me with the deepest, bluest eyes I've ever seen. So deep and blue they look artificial, like dying flowers. I've never seen eyes that beautiful. I turn around when I realize I'm staring. The nearest hospital can't be far, I say, shifting into drive. I'll Google it, Cameron says. We've been on the road for a couple days now. I woke up Thursday morning with Cameron on top of me, hair in my face, and saying, I've always wanted to go on a road trip. So I sat up and packed our bags, throwing her over my shoulder and setting out. Right now, driving through said, we've come to admit that doing a huge road trip during winter was not a well thought out plan. At least it worked out for somebody. Cameron sets the GPS in her phone and mantles it onto the dashboard. I signal and pull out. A horn blares and I slam on the brakes as a transport truck swerves out of the way and barrels by us. Our car rocks in the wind. Jesus, Cameron says. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Cameron doesn't say anything to that. She's not the kind of person to rub something in if you're already feeling bad. I don't think I've ever been more grateful for that. I thoroughly check for oncoming traffic, looking in both mirrors and my blind spot until my neck hurts and my eyes ache. I pull out. As we drive, the only sounds are the vents pumping warm air and our own erratic breathing. My grip on the steering wheel tightens as I struggle against nature. The wipers work overtime to clear away all the snow, but I still can barely see in front of us, except for the neon sign passing on the right that says drive safe. It might be kind of funny once we get off the road and into the warmth of a motel bed. Cameron turns on the radio and leans into me. She cycles through stations until she finds country music. She had to put up with David Bowie's entire discography up until now, so I can't argue. She looks back at the woman curled in the back seat. What do you think happened to her? She whispers. I don't know, I say. Do you think she was, hurt like that? I don't know, I say again. Snippier this time, feeling anger begin to rush my face. Then, sorry. She takes my hand. She's warmer than I am, her hand practically burning mine. It's okay, she's going to be okay. She's already looking better. I adjust the rear view to look at her. Colour is returning to her olive skin and she seems more alert, looking around like she isn't sure how she got in our car. She sits up, my coat falling off her shoulders, her body exposed. My heart thunders in my chest. When I look at her, my body feels light, as if my soul's rising from the dead weight of my flesh. As if my soul's rising out from the dead weight of my flesh. It's a feeling I've only experienced when drunk, but I've been sober for years. After how Cameron found me last time. Embarrassed, I look away from the woman, keeping my eyes on the road, and nod at her bare chest, betraying how cold she is. The feeling starts to fade. Hungry, she says. That's when I fall completely irreparably in love with her. It's not the perfect curves like a winding mountain road, or the way her eyes look so much deeper than anyone else's, like there are whole worlds contained in the vastness of her irises. It's not her helplessness, even though I am very literally her hero right now, and that is admirably hot. No, it's her voice, uttering a single word we can all relate to, and it shoots me so full of endorphins. I'm suddenly a giddy teenager, having his first kiss all over again. You have to understand, I love my girlfriend. She's the most helpful, beautiful, kind person I've ever met. We both like Indian food and hate fancy coffees, and we've spent so much time together. She feels less like she was once a stranger and more like she's always been a part of me. But there's just something about this woman that makes none of that matter. There's a tugging that I can feel in my gut, my body yearning to be inside her. Cameron opens the glove compartment and pulls out a chocolate bar. She holds it out to the woman. Our hitchhiker just stares. I'm hungry, she says again. It might be a little frozen, but it's better than nothing. The woman says nothing. We're probably about half an hour from the nearest diner, Cameron says helpfully, putting the chocolate back. We can stop there and get something to eat. We can get out my suitcases too. I'm sure some of my clothes will fit you. No, the woman says. She turns to me. I need to feed it now. Anything, I say without thinking. What exactly are you going to feed her? Cameron hisses. Anything, I said again. find anything. I'm not going to give her crumbs off the floor, Kyle, she says. She starts looking around the car, checking hidden pockets and cup holders. Do you have any jerky left? Your lover, the woman says. Give me your lover. The colour goes from Cameron's face as she looks back in horror. My own body, however, is reacting like she's just said she loves me, and we're having a baby and everything is going to be alright. The pit of my stomach flares with warmth. Excuse me, Cameron says. The hitchhiker leans over me, mouth wet on my ear, breasts on my arm. I'm going to eat your lover, she says, and it's like she told me I've won an all-expenses-paid vacation to Hawaii, freeing me from the endless cold and bringing me to the ocean side with her, forever with her. What the fuck, Cameron screams. Kyle, stop the car. Don't stop the car, Kyle, the woman says. It's not even a struggle, wondering who to listen to. The hitchhiker turns to Cameron and straddles the center console. Cameron's sobbing, don't let her do this. The woman dips her face in quickly once, like a bird pecking its food. Cameron screams and cries hard. She presses her hand to her neck, blood leaking through her fingers. Oh my God, Cameron says through her tears. What are you? She screams again, loud and curdled and more visceral than anything you could ever experience reading a book or watching a movie. A sound that explodes in my brain without fireworks of every colour. Into fireworks of every colour. Somehow, even with her mouth full of flesh, the woman sings. It's this country pop top 40 ballad that's all over the radio. Something Cameron would have loved. Which means normally it's the auditory equivalent of chewing glass. But with my new love singing, it's my favourite song. My favourite sound in a world full of children's laughter and kittens meowing and loved-laced moans. Cameron bats the hitchhiker away with all the power of a baby, her struggling easing into complacency. The hitchhiker tears off Cameron's ear. I blink and just for a second she changes. She has wings broken so the bone sticks out, huge and feathered where her arms should be. She's still naked, her bare back soft and smooth in the light of the car GPS. But her eyes look darker, almost black, and her mouth is contorted in a single, hard, sharp beak. And when I blink again and she's back to the woman who makes my heart race, and my body sweat and my dick throb, and I can't control myself around her. She swallows and she turns to me. I'm still hungry, she says. I know what she wants. I expose my neck for her. She leans in. I close my eyes and I feel her breath on my neck, warm and wet, and her soft blushed lips too. Her teeth, her tooth, her sharp beak at my neck, breaking my skin so the first drop of blood trickles down and pulls in my collarbone. From behind my eyelids there's a light, and I almost think I'm in heaven. My heart hurts. I'm so happy to be giving myself to this woman. Then the horn starts, and in that second I see her for what she is, her beady eyes staring at the oncoming traffic, her pecan open over my neck, and headlights outlining every feather on her body. And I see Cameron too, my beautiful, smart, funny Cameron, torn apart and slumped against the passenger side door. I swerve out of the way, the truck's bumper on an inch away from taking us out, my hands turning and wheel left and right, and left as the back of the car fishtails, and the wheels catch on a patch of black ice, and suddenly the car is out of my control, completely spinning around as the trees and the road and the black form a panorama of the middle of nowhere, and then the car flips over. Glass shatters and cuts open my face. Metal bends as the roof dents and caves in. Blood squirts into my mouth, though I don't know if it's mine or Cameron's or the hitchhiker's, and everything stops. I hang upside down, seatbelt pressed into my chest as it supports my weight, airbags deflated. I look over at Cameron, ignoring the screaming pain in my neck. The airbag is covered in blood and Cameron is everywhere, bits of her stuck to the ceiling and the chair. The naked woman, her top half now entirely burnt, her bottom half still impossibly woman, lies with her eyes closed in the back. Blood trickles out of her head, over her feathers. I sit in a daze for a few moments, feeling the cold of the snow coming in through broken windows, trying to focus on something, anything, and then I remember where I am. What caused the accident? I scramble for the seatbelt. It releases, dropping me to the ceiling. I open the door and fall into the snow. My arms and face are on fire, the snow burning and burning, until I'm numb to the pain. The car door slams behind me. I spin around, slipping in the loose snow, limping through the trees. She cries out to me, cries like a bird whose wings I've broken. Feathers released from her, catching in the wind of the blizzard, and blowing away until there's nothing left. She was never here at all. I crossed my arms, climbing up the ditch, and kneel on the gravel shoulder. I pray for someone kind, someone like Cameron, to stop and help a hitchhiker. Damn, I did not know it was going to go that way, but anyway. Okay, I'm probably going to end the video here, or I'll do a little bit more book sounds. Stories and you want me to read more, there's a lot of longer ones. I tried to choose the more shorter ones, like 5 pages, but there are some longer ones, so if you liked the stories that I read and you want me to read more, I can definitely do that. So yeah, I'm sorry if that lipstick was there for the whole video. Oh my god. Okay, anyway, if you guys liked this video, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe for more videos every week. I love you all so